Hi everyone, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. Since we last spoke, a couple of really important things have started developing on the battlefield, and we're going to talk about them right now. So we're going to start with the southern direction where Ukraine has defended itself against the Russian attacks around the Vuhledar, around here. So the Russians were attacking. We know they were attacking both from south side. There was also some attacks more about here towards Novomikhailivka. And also Russians are targeting Avdiivka, where previously they captured completely Pisky village. And now they're trying to develop the Pisky towards Avdiivka. Now, if you haven't seen, then yesterday reporting from Ukraine has been talking about tactics in the situation, and I'm still going to refer you to that, to him for that. However, I do not agree with him that this will be catastrophic situation for the Ukrainians if Avdiivka will fall. Yes, this is where the main defense line for Ukrainians is actually present. However, what I wanted to underscore that while Russians can advance and maybe use this mobilization potential to plug in holes and use more trained troops in other directions to capture territories, it will not win the war. We need to understand that taking one town, maybe two towns, three towns, four towns, does not win the war. Will it complicate situation? Absolutely. There's going to be no questions asked. It's going to be a really big problem for Ukrainians if Avdiivka is captured. However, this can also be recaptured back. Ukrainian part is that losing Avdiivka will not automatically collapse the Ukrainian government, and it will be fine in time. Ukraine will win this all. Don't worry. But so far, the defenses are still there. Ukraine still have potential for bringing in reserves. So Avdiivka is okay right now. Don't worry about it. But what I do want to talk about is the result of these attacks that were happening yesterday. I'm just going to draw it here again. So there is plenty of videos, and there is plenty of other information that is coming from the battlefields. Russians were trying to attack after preparing with the artillery strikes and the aviation. And yesterday, the losses were catastrophic for Russians. If Ukrainian side reported the numbers, and I know the numbers that I'm showing here are disputed by different sources, they can be most probably lower, while other sources probably can tell you that they are higher. But we need to understand the dynamics here. So compared to the normals, this was almost double of what normally is available. And importantly, I see that what lost mostly is BMPs, like, fast tracks, and personnel. So this kind of gets me thinking if Russians are trying to use essentially the same Ukrainian tactics that they've been seeing. So trying to put people on the vehicles and drive them fast into the advanced enemy line. I'm not sure if they're doing it or not. I haven't seen confirmation of that, but there is a lot of very, very dead Russians. So the last couple of days were not very good for them, and I think this is going to be a big disaster coming. That's because a daily loss of 950, as reported by Ukrainians, is nothing to scourge about. This is a really, really big losses for Russians. At this rate, they can just, if this would happen every day, then Russians would end within a couple of months. That's the first kind of big thing to talk about. Then the second one is obviously Crimea. So around Sevastopol area, this is where the Russian fleet has been stationed. And I'm just going to put up this video. So this is an excellent video. Ukraine used a lot of aerial drones, and also in combination with the surface drones, like these boats that are driving towards the ships and exploding. So like controllable torpedoes, one might say. Well, as a layman like I am, I can say that. We definitely know that at least 3 ships have been damaged. One of which was actually supposedly the new flagman ship after losing of Moskva, and it was Admiral Makarov, I believe the name of it was. Correct me if I'm wrong. And so Admiral Makarov Obviously, Russians are not claiming that it's been damaged, though some other Russians are claiming that it has been just scratched and nothing really damaged it. However, once we saw the video, we saw definitely that the boats hit their targets. These drones, they hit their targets. So whatever damage it sustained, we can assume that it's going to definitely impact how well it can perform. We know that Admiral Makarov was a carrier of the Caliber missiles, so that can mean that there's going to be less of cruise missiles flying towards Ukraine in the coming days. That is the second big news, and it's important because the fact that Ukraine can strike targets so far by using drones as an actual part of the complex operations is really nice. This just allows Ukraine to develop these capabilities, and even without the allies providing some kind of long-range artillery, Ukrainians will still find ways to reach the targets within Russia. Yes, these were naval targets, but this might as well be later on like targets like a storage facilities, or indeed something like a Crimean bridge, or maybe some other infrastructure. Bridges are kind of a little bit tougher to take down with just a couple of drones. We know that. Then Russia, important thing, I think I'm going to switch to the vlogging camera by this point. So Russia is now suspending itself from the grain deal. And I think it's quite clear for us all that Russia didn't really felt that the grain deal would bring it the clout that it wanted, because they wanted to facilitate the grain deal and use the platform of the grain deal with Turkey as essentially a starting for negotiation. Because remember, Russia is begging for negotiations. They're trying to find any kind of off-ramp that would allow them essentially to keep the controlled territories, regroup and prepare strengths for the next invasion. They're looking for that. And the grain deal was an option for that. However, it did not pay off. So since then, it lost any kind of importance for Russia. So now they are leveraging the grain deal and turning it in essentially as different weapons. Like, yes, we're canceling the grain deal, so we're not going to let Ukrainian ships pass, but it is us, we actually can substitute the Ukrainian grain, and then we can help these countries that are in need. So, twisting the narrative that they are actually the good guys, as usual. The second important topic that I want to touch is the fact that Putin and Shoigu sat together before the camera and talked about mobilization being suspended and completed, saying that they have mobilized 300,000 men, which many sources claim is not actually true. But it's not the point. The point is that some people really believe Putin when he talks. Remember, I'm going to put this again on the screen. If Russians are talking, they most certainly are lying. So there needs to be proof saying that they did not lie before you start believing this. And still, in a lot of people in my community, I still read a lot of these sayings. It's like, yes, Russia is like saying that they stopped mobilization. That means that they did stop mobilization. No. What happened is they mobilized some people. Part of it is being sent right straight to the front lines to essentially fill in the holes in the existing regular units, so they can free up some of the men with battle capabilities to execute some kind of activities on the battlefield, while mobilized are staying in trenches to protect from any kind of Ukrainian advances. Though they're being used for attacks in other directions as well. While other parts of these mobilized are now being sent to the training facilities, and they're looking to get them later on as a new trained force into Ukraine, maybe around the end of December. And now we go into November, and November is when the Russian conscription, the regular conscriptions of Russians will start. This is where the new conscripts from like 19, 18 and up to 27 years old, they're going to get called into army to become essentially a new force that's going to be trained and capable to be used on the territory of Russia, which is essentially the territory of Ukraine. So they're going to get essentially the same mobilized personnel, except from other sources. And we definitely know, with the tempo that Ukrainians are killing Russians right now, that these 300,000, which is disputed number, that even if they trained are going to come by in December together with these conscripts going to come into the battlefield, it will still not be enough to significantly turn the battlefield. We see that the inevitable processes have started. Russia's mobilization is not solving project problems for logistics and so on. Yes, they're able to now do some kind of activities and, make us a little bit of pushback while also defending the front lines. It will allow doing that. Like, there's possibilities, but there is no taking Ukraine. This is not going to change the war. And that's the important part. So it took about 8 months for Ukrainians to grind down. Someone was calculating roughly around 200,000 Russian troops. So we can expect about the same length. So in about 5-6 months, Russians will start mobilizing again, or maybe start mobilizing right after the conscription period will end. The point is, Russians will continue mobilizing again and again and again. Stop thinking that they will stop. They will never stop. So the Russians will just keep coming. The bodies will keep coming. I know there is also other channels that said, like, well, the Russian people will change their mentality and then they will start believing. Stop believing anything, putting any kind of hope in Russians. You need to put hope where the hope delivers results. And the only place that delivers results is with the armed forces of Ukraine. Trust in the armed forces of Ukraine. They are the best negotiating power in this conflict. To round it all off, I want to say a couple of really good news. I was very pleasantly surprised by the new Italian Prime Minister that came in. I believe her name was Meloni. What was her last name? And she said that Italy would increase support for Ukraine, which is excellent news. Something I personally, gotta be fair, did not expect from Italy. So Italy said that they will deliver additional 2 M270, which is essentially like a HIMARS type launcher, except it's a little bit different, but don't worry about it. So 2 more essentially HIMARS missiles launchers to strike positions far away, and 6 Panzerhaubitze 2000, which is German-made long-range artillery as well. Super good news, really excellent. Ukrainians are protecting the lines against the Russian advance. Many Russians are dying. All things looking good. Oh, and final thing. Somewhat recently, I saw people posting and throwing, videos or screenshots of like Ukrainian troops being shot at, killed, wounded, their equipment being blown up. That is war. I'm not saying that Ukrainians are not suffering casualties. They are. But we need to always keep the big picture in mind. Once this war is over, we're going to mourn every single loss of every single civilian, child, and other heroes that have laid their heads in Ukraine for the freedom of Ukraine. So until then, we need to stay on the message, support Armed Forces of Ukraine, support this channel, and big thanks to all of the patrons and subscribers of this channel. You're making this happen, and I will donate at least 50% of the profits that I get to the Armed Forces of Ukraine. See you next time.